Hello everyone, welcome to the Data Insight Postcards. Again, myself Ganesh Gandhieswaran, co-founder and CEO of ConverSight. So welcome to our next episode. I am really excited to have this one, and we have a special guest, Ben from Katana. I am very familiar with Katana and a little bit about you, Ben, and you know, if you maybe can give a little bit about you and then about the company, what you guys do and some of the problems you're solving. And then I want to double click, we both are in the supply chain and the AI journey together, and let's understand what's happening in and around
Yeah,
us.
that sounds
Looking
great.
forward.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm co-CEO of Katana. My career actually kind of started out with web-based automation systems.
Okay.
And so I actually kind of started learning how to automate in-store transactions was basically what it is. And that turned into a career of selling e-commerce software. And of
Okay.
course, order management inventory is all part of that. So my background really has been about helping either a company I work for or companies I'm working with to figure out how to automate the mundane, the things they do every day, perhaps the things that are happening at scale,
Okay.
and also to kind of make sure that the answer is right. And I know that maybe sounds a bit silly, but when it comes to inventory, fundamentally what you're trying to solve is what do I have in stock? Where is it? How
Yeah.
do I make sure I get the right product to the right customer at the right time? And so
Oh,
Katana, that's
absolutely.
what we're about, right? What we want to make sure is that from our standpoint, we think it's really important that it all happens real time. And so for a small business, making sure that they know what they have, whether they made it themselves or they bought it from someone else, and that they can provide that as available to sell to their customers. And that's what we do.
Is there any specific industry segment, you all focus on in Qatar?
People know our background probably if they know us as supporting manufacturers. And that is how we started out as a company. So you can actually use Katana from purchase orders with suppliers, purchasing your raw materials, manufacturing, cost of
Okay.
goods sold, all the way to finished good. But actually, half of our customers are not manufacturers. They would
Uh-huh.
be buying finished product or maybe product to assemble. Maybe they're even drop shipping, wholesaling. There's all kinds of sourcing models. But what's really common is that our customers usually have more than one place they're selling to. So maybe like e-commerce, Shopify and eBay, or Shopify and in-store. We're seeing more and more of these, I would call them the branded manufacturers or kind of hybrid business models. So
Mhm.
we've got lots of companies that they make their own product, but they sell it themselves. So they sell direct to consumer. They might sell it to the grocery stores. Think protein companies, for example, is a really good example, right? Or protein bars. There's a bunch of kind of these small, medium-sized businesses, good-sized companies, and that's their kind of business model. We see lots of those as well.
So especially in this SMB space, right? It's a journey, right? I'm sure initially they all focus on their product and they got some market traction, and so probably the Excel is not enough, right? So
Yeah.
what point did the customers you work with, they realize, you know what, I'm overwhelmed with this Excel or my QuickBooks. Like, when do they get to that? What's that? Is it a revenue number? Is it like number of orders or number of people? What's a size?
I'm a bit passionate about this one because
Okay,
I like Excel.
hear
I
it.
think they're great products for all of its sins and problems. But when it comes to running a business, I don't think it's the right thing.
Uh,
And I actually think that stage is probably a lot sooner than people think, because
okay,
something like Katana, we actually have a free plan now. Anyone can go and sign up and use Katana for free. But if you're on a paid plan, we're talking about $300 or $400 a month, right? It's a complexity problem. So if you're selling 5 products, you're selling them out of your you know, your garden shed, your garage, whatever, you're selling them just on Shopify. You don't need us. Shopify will probably do most of what you need. You could probably plug in QuickBooks or FreshBooks or something like that, and you're probably good to go. You might still be using in Excel to count inventory, but as soon as you get kind of more than a handful of products, as soon as you're selling in more than one place, or as soon as you're sourcing the product in different ways,
okay,
that's where the problems start. Because what Excel can't do is it can't think for you and it can't operate in real time. So it can't tell you that you got 100 orders from Shopify, you've got 200 things in stock, but you've already allocated 200 things to your retail store or eBay,
yeah,
whatever it is. And it's that real-time complexity, because what happens then is the problem for a small business is what they end up doing is they either put in they're understocking, so they're not selling enough, right? There's more demand than and they could supply more, so they could make more money. Or what they will invariably do is they'll have more product than they need. They'll overstock, and that means they're tying up cash flow on their shelves, which for a small business is a huge problem,
Yeah.
right? You really want to try and avoid doing that. And that's where people run into with Excel. And then I think the other big clue is we had a customer that came to us from Excel, and they told us that they had their team spending 30 hours a week in Excel. And so I just kind of say to people, do the maths, right? If you've got someone that you're paying X dollars an hour for just working in Excel, and we can take that away for you for a few $100s a month,
Yep.
what's that look like? What's the opportunity cost? If they're spending time in Excel, what are they not doing to further your business, right? Most business owners don't want to spend all day in Excel or any other solution for that matter. They want to be out there selling and moving their business forward.
Got it. So now that they have more number of products or inventory in multiple places, and their sales is growing. So it's a great idea to have a system to manage. I got that. Now, obviously, it's the inventory systems are not new. We've been having that for ages now, right?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of different software, and there is AI coming in, analytics, AI, digitalization, a lot of things coming. So how do you define, what is your vision on this, like modernization on the
Yeah.
inventory system? How do you classify that, and
Really
what does
don't.
that mean for your customers?
You're actually asking me the business case for our company in some respects here.
Sure.
So let me ask you this, right? If I say the words SAP or NetSuite, what do you think of, right? You don't think of happy times, generally speaking. When most people think of the legacy ERPs, the big ones, or even the smaller ones that are maybe 20 years old, they're kind of master of all, but jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing, right? And so what most people feel like is they feel like they're costly. They take a long time. They're hard to learn. It's painful.
Okay.
And so generally with those kind of the legacy solutions, you're right, they've been around for a long time, but the problem is they've been around for a long time. And so, while they do many things, well, what we have found is that for SMBs, because the price of technology has come down, what modern means today is that it's a cloud native solution. So it's cost effective. It's always on. It's operating in real time. Your vendor is releasing new capabilities for you constantly. You can log in.
You're not doing a big upgrade and all that.
Right, you're not doing a big upgrade. You don't have servers. You don't need to call someone to, do any of that kind of stuff, right? Because for most small businesses, they don't have a big IT team. Right? They don't have big budgets. They don't deal with any of that.
Yeah, they're very lean. Yeah.
Is software as a service. We're doing all that work for you, so you don't need to. The other thing I'd kind of say is there's a bit of a strategic kind of question, which maybe sounds a bit odd for this, but there's something called best in suite and best of breed. So best of suite is where you pick one solution or one vendor as an ERP or inventory management that does everything. And then there's best in breed. So if I say, what's the best e-commerce out there? You might say something like Shopify. You're unlikely to say something like SAP or NetSuite or Odoo. If I said to you accounting, you're likely to say QuickBooks, Xero, something like that. And so what we see more and more of in this kind of now modern space, people often use the word composable as well, integrated. It's about an SMB saying, the best solution for me for e-commerce is Shopify. The best CRM for me is a HubSpot. The best accounting is QuickBooks. The best inventory is Katana. And I want to use them together. So the modern ERP space is not about having one big, heavy system that does everything. It's about you picking the best solutions for what your business does and your business needs, and then integrating them together.
Integrating
them together. Automatically these days, right? It doesn't require 6 months. Most people with Katana can get set up in a few days all by themselves. Right?
Yeah.
It's that approach really is the most modern thing that we see today.
Got it. So it's cloud native, and it comes as a low cost of ownership. So big, you don't need to pay a lot of big money, and then you don't need to have a lot of technology resources to own this and run this. And it's all running in cloud, and you are continue to innovate, and they will continue to get those innovation. So that's all great. We moved from, someone is doing manual all Excel to this system, which is magically updating all that. Great. Now, if they're CFO or CEO or supply chain leaders, now assume they are in the ERP, they're capturing a lot of this data, all that kind of thing, right? So I'm sure some of our audience are, It's a data AI insights podcast. Like we are hearing a lot about AI now, a lot about digitalization. Of course, I always, whenever someone come and ask me, hey, what you guys do, and I say ConverSight is conversational insight. You can talk to your ERP data. But then my immediate question is, do you have data? Do you have the data captured? Is it a good quality? So now when they get into the ERP, do they need to have some set of standardization process, like the product naming or whatever? Like, what do they need to follow? Like, you can say best practices or whatever. What do they need to do 100% right so that 2 years from now, they will not have any issue?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's actually the thing that trips most people up.
Hmm.
Usually it trips people up if they're coming from Excel or something like that. And because you're right, they don't have standard definitions, nomenclature and things. So usually actually for us, that's where our biggest lift is. Our onboarding team or one of our partners will help customers with that, because ideal state, we do need to have certain data in a certain way, like, naming conventions on products, right? But ultimately, our system's flexible that we can accommodate what the customer needs. It's just that the customer needs to be consistent.
Mhm.
They can't change the name of something every day, because obviously that
Yeah.
doesn't. Right. So there are some best practices that we can help customers with when they're doing that setup to make sure that it's kind of well set up. But you mentioned AI at the beginning, and perhaps we'll talk about it more. But we've got an AI tool that will help people with sales orders and emails, right? Because lots of times
Yeah.
people get an email with a sales order and it won't really say the product name, or certainly not the SKU or anything accurate. And so
Mm.
like our AI will now actually, grab that and pull that in, and we'll do a match to match up the order to the product database. So there's more and
Nice.
more things that you can do to help with the problem, as it were. But yeah, I mean, fundamentally, the accuracy of data is important. There's no question about it.
Especially the master data, make sure that your customers are right, product name is
Yeah.
right, that kind of stuff.
The one thing I will say though is, because we are the source of truth for inventory data, right? System of
Mm.
record. Once
Mm.
you've got that in Katana, it makes it so much easier for everything else, right? Because then we're kind of the hub, and then everything. Because then when we connect in, Shopify or accounting, whatever it is, you've got that consistency across everything, and that's a big benefit as well.
So, move from, Excel to the modern ERP, as you mentioned, cloud and all that modern, but then obviously don't follow the same old Excel process, like create any product you want, make sure the products are created with right description, right detail. And so then now that data is ready, you can start using it. So now we spoke about a little bit on the system, right? From Excel to ERP to cloud, all that. Let's shift the focus a little bit more on the business. Now, I know last 5 years, one or other challenges, right? Initially, we have some global trade issues and import and other things. And then recently, now the tariff, all that, right? So, and then interest rates are, way high than 5 years back, right? So, what are you hearing from your business leaders? What are some of the challenges, especially around inventory? What are you hearing?
So big picture, it's the unknown, and it is that uncertainty, and it's the
Yeah.
volatility, right? It's that pace of change. And so it is a bit different in different places,
Yeah.
because, and I've actually I've actually we've done a lot of studies on this actually, so I happen to know it. So beginning of the year in the UK, they saw an 18% delay in shipments in their supply chain.
Wow. 18% delay.
And if you go back to Q4 of last year in the US, the cost of goods sold went up 103% in Q4. Right? Election happens. People think tariffs are going to come in place. What do? They buy up a year's worth of inventory in advance.
Buy more. Yes. Mm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
if you go back 2 years or 5 years, that would be, no one would even consider doing stuff like that.
Mm.
There's a story in the news about someone who kind of had bought something, it was being shipped over, tariff was applied mid-shipment, and the tariff cost more than the good was, they could sell it for.
Mm.
And so these are the sorts of challenges we're seeing more and more of. What we try and do and help people with is, that's why we really believe that the real-time information is so key. And that's
Yeah.
why, if you look at the demand slide, lots of people use our demand forecasting tool, because what they really want to try and do, obviously, is match up demand and supply as well as they can, and avoid that overstock, understock that I mentioned earlier, right? So we've seen a big improvement with some of those problems around making sure you've got the right amount of stock for the right demand. Every industry is different. We saw beginning of the year cosmetics, bought up a lot, but then demand dropped off completely, so they were left with a bunch of inventory. We saw food and beverage go the other direction. They bought up a lot, sold it all, and then kept buying
Hmm.
that segment. It's not a one size fits all, which is why I'm a big believer in the optionality advantage and the flexibility advantage, and using real-time connected tools. Like in Katana, you can see all of your suppliers and the prices, and you can apply all the tariffs so that you can see your landed cost.
Perfect. Yeah.
Business owner, you want to see your landed cost so that you know who should
Yeah.
I be buying from, and maybe that changes tomorrow, and then the next day I'll go and pick a different supplier. Well, if you're using Excel and you're doing monthly reconciliation and looking at things once a month, you're never doing that, and you're going to lose a ton of money. So
Exactly.
the challenges are, there's not one challenge, but it really does come from this very volatile market. And that's why there's no just do this answer. I think the businesses that are doing well are the ones who can adapt the quickest to the things that are changing and take advantage. And I believe you can only really do that if you have that accurate real-time information in your systems.
I think awesome. I think that is a great segue into the data and the analytics space. I think you already brought some of those challenges and tariff and I have seen very similar and number of companies they have piled up their inventory, especially in the Q4 and Q1 because of the fear of unknown. But then that's not enough. Q2 we saw some tariff, and then now you know most of the conversation where I am with like what should be my right price and what will be my impact, because every customer we have helped on demand forecasting and figuring out where they will be in terms of their revenue and costs and margin, and that's the plan is not good. We working with you know a manufacturing company. They have big retailers. A product which sold like couple of $1 million and can't sell now because the price went up 50% and they no longer can compete. And then in other market where they don't import from a country where the tariff is high, now they are able to compete against their competitor. So that means the whole dynamics changes. Whatever the demand, supply, forecasting, what we did, now a product which we were not thinking it's going to sell, it's selling now, and it's other way around. It's all start with the data analytics and AI. Obviously, as ConverSight, our tagline is hire Athena. It's a lot of things you didn't do, leader, and here is your AI assistant to do it.
And I think one of the key things what you just said, it's both sides of the equation, because you're not, you have to look at yourself and your kind of data, and in my case it's inventory, right? So it's like what do I have and where is it? But that's demand forecasting, like you mentioned, right? That you're helping people understand that I've really got to look ahead more. And so one of the things I've seen successful companies do,
Yeah.
and we like to think our customers are successful. They're on average they grow at about twice the rate of the market, and so I think they're doing something right. And what they're doing is they're using the data to look ahead, right, and trying to think of what are those other opportunities or problems that I might want to try and avoid. And I think that's just something I guess people have been in part forced into, and perhaps a way they didn't a year or two ago.
So in terms of the way we look at the importance of the data, but do you see that is changing now? Because historically, when we think about ERP, inventory, and all those, like we want a system of record. Anytime when I want to see, I need to know exactly where it is. So it's a system of record versus now that is needed much more for my decision intelligence and AI and all that. But do you see that shift already felt in the business community that this data is needed compared to like a couple of years?
I do, and I think there's two kind of elements to it. So one is the fact that real-time data is now available because of modern solutions, like us and others, right? It's obviously not just us. So I think that's made the data more accessible. And I think coupled with that is that it's not just about the numbers, it's about the insight,
Yeah.
right? And you guys know this full too well, right? It's not just like I've got 10 of these things, it's about the so what, is what can I do with that? And if I go
Yes.
back a few years, we were talking about these great, data lakes and all this kind of stuff. That's not really useful for an SMB, right? They don't really need or to care or worry about that. What they want to know is, well, what do I do?
Yes.
And particularly in these kind of more uncertain times, I think that's the big shift, is that businesses now are better able to use data to actually get to useful decisions in real time nature. And I think that's really driven more of that behavior, and partly I think by choice, but partly just necessity, I think. has bred some of that as well.
Also, very interestingly, like even when you mentioned about the system landscape, Shopify and maybe Amazon, and then the inventory system like your Katana, and then QuickBooks or Zero. Like, I'm sure some of these companies spend a lot of money in marketing, in the social media and all that. So a lot of data, right? Like, while inventory, okay, I have $1 million worth of inventory here, but is marketing team aware of it, and are they advertising for that product if that is non-moving? And then, okay, we spend like $200,000 on advertisement. Are we seeing that many orders and click and inbound to my Shopify page, right? So a lot of that, right? So how that data is interconnected and doing, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I mean,
certainly,
don't push products that you don't have in stock, or
yeah,
you have no way to get in stock because your supplier can't bring it to you because of tariffs, right?
yeah.
Those are all
You
things that
know,
you need to
it's
do.
like, I spent my 20 years in this data analytics, like, especially with the supply chain leaders. Until like pandemic, like, supply chain team is taken for granted, right? They will deliver what we want to deliver, and it's their pain if the inventory is not available. Now it's a collective thing, right? If you don't have a right inventory at the right time, the sales is not going to make their number. Marketing team can't show their conversion rate, lot of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that. 'Cause, I mean, there's maybe two little slight tangents, but we had one of our customers. They came from Excel, I think. They started using Katana. Some of the things
Mm.
she took that they found $40,000 worth of inventory they didn't know they had.
Wow.
Right, like so,
Yeah.
like counting it correctly, that's actually a pretty big plus.
That's your ROI on month one.
Right, it's pretty good. But I also remember when it was before Katana, I was in my uh, during COVID, I was working in order management, and one of the big problems, particularly in a place like the UK where the stores were shut down,
Mm.
the businesses that knew what they had in stock in the stores and could then push that to online instead did well. The companies that didn't have good control of their inventory and order management weren't able to do that, and they did very badly. They were not able to service their customers. So that's is obviously a very different event, but it's that lesson in flexibility and being ready for different opportunities or problems and what you can do about it.
Yeah, see, especially, inventory is becoming even more critical. It's not like our own warehouse. I was working with a recent customer, and like they have a low inventory or are out of stock in Amazon, for example. Their algorithm is, okay, it's going to not going to pick up your product when you have inventory next month, because it's always stock out, like, so it's not coming in the ranking. And they had to figure out how do they work on that, bring back to their good rank, because of the stock out, their rank gone down, right? It's like, no, it's not just making a product and keeping it in inventory, but it need to be in the right place at the right
Yeah,
time, as you
yeah,
started with.
yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
absolutely. So now let's go from data. Now we talked about modern ERP systems, inventory systems, to data, the importance of the data. Let's go to little bit AI, right? So
Right.
I
Eh,
know I'm living, breathing that AI, agentic, generative AI, and everyone got to know about this Chat GPT and co-pilots, and we are all talking to the system every day. But in the inventory system, what do you see it already? And then we'll go to the future next, right? What do you already see? What are you doing from a product perspective? And then what is your customers asking today?
So I think the first thing for I think people to think about is, and well, certainly in our case, we see AI as augmenting humans and taking away the repetitive jobs, and that will happen kind of first. But the later stage of AI, which is not yet, but I think it will come, is instead of people having to count stock and do stock control, there's going to be autonomous inventory planning when an AI agent does that for you.
Mhm.
Instead of just looking at historical reports, AI is going to give you an answer on predictive analytics on what the
Yeah,
future is going to look like. Instead of manually setting up inventory or systems, AI is going to do it for you. So the goals are still being set by the human, and the overall kind of what you're trying to achieve is still human driven. But the kind of the work of getting it done is ultimately going to be done by not just one AI, but a kind of set of different specific things.
got it.
And I think the other thing it's going to do, instead of instead of your operational team having to say, I've got, this much stuff in stock. AI should be sending you a text to say, hey, you've got this many things in stock today, you've got this many orders. Do you want me to order X more things because demand's increasing?
Absolutely.
Yes, please. Right. That's how it should work in the future. And that's how we're looking at it. And that's the direction we're taking, is to really get it into more of an insights decision making experience for people.
Mhm.
But they're not kind of, no business owner wants to go in and use software. It's something they have to do to get to their outcome or their objective. And that's where I think AI can really start to help people.
Yeah, see, I think you're spot on some of that. It's augmenting. It's going to augment, especially like obviously some of these large companies are adapting to AI and they are hiring army of people and all that. But while they can do it to productivity improvement, whatever, but in the SMB space, they don't have that many hands. They can't hire a lot of people like perfect, right? Like let's automate as much as possible, right? Or if they need to do cycle counting every week, can we automate that? Or can they need to create some 200 purchase orders? Can this AI automatically create them, right?
Yeah,
Trigger them,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
So that's really awesome. In fact, what we recently started was taking that to next step, the agentic AI stuff. Like if some company have like we call supply assurance agent. So you hire Athena and let Athena talk to your supplier. Like, there are some supplier you need to call them and make sure that they received your purchase order. And will they deliver it? And is that make sure there is no delay? We are expecting this big shipment next week, Monday. Are you guys all good? Is there any surprises? Like just check them, right? So you don't need to email them. You don't need to call them. Let the AI call them and or email them, get anything, right? So there are number of things AI could potentially do, but not necessarily it's going to, take away anybody's work. Rather, it can greatly
Yeah, I mean,
augment the
exactly.
team.
It'll point things out. It'll say, hey, Guinness, did you know that for, this particular product, you're paying on average 10% more than the market? Would you
Mhm.
like me to renegotiate your supplier?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. See, as you said, like simple automation ERP showed them that $40,000 like inventory being visible. Like now this generative AI and agentic AI can do a lot of wonderful things.
Yeah, and, you mentioned Jenna, and I think that's the other thing for people to kind of perhaps recognize is that the term AI means a lot.
Mhm.
And so, there's still the basics of predictive modeling and machine learning and things and deterministic, big math computations that bring a lot of value. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to apply big LLMs to everything or in the future, independent generative AI thought or whatever it is, right? There's different things for different use cases.
Yeah.
And
So
you might be using AI and not even know it as well, right? I mean, that's the other thing. Is you
exactly.
use AI. Well, if we're providing you a solution, ultimately AI is a technology and a solution that's being provided to solve your problem. And I think that's the key thing is we want to make sure that if we're applying AI to a solution to solve something, it's because there is a real customer problem that has to be solved.
Absolutely. Recently I was on a show with like 50 plus small manufacturing companies along with university here, and we did a survey. Like these are SMBs, and what do you think about AI? Are you ready for it? And all those. Surprisingly, like 65% of them said we are not ready for it. And then the follow question, why? Like we don't have resources or we don't have money or like that kind of a capital. Like I think how you started, like, traditionally those big ERPs, like a lot of money, you need a lot of resources, you need a lot of servers and all that. How, ERPs like Katana, like cloud native and, just a service, like same way today, the AI is much more adaptable and all those. So I want to hear from you. What are you hearing from your customers? Like, are they ready for the AI? Are there any constraint in their mind, like from a readiness perspective?
I think it runs a range. We've got customers who actually don't really interact with Katana at all. They've got AI-based robots in their warehouse moving stuff around.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I mean, they're pretty advanced. They know AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got some, I would say, more traditional manufacturers who are moving from Excel to Katana, and that's their step forward. AI is not on the radar for them. But like you said, I mean, it doesn't have to. It is a big and scary thing, but in some ways, it doesn't have to be. Like you can start testing stuff. Just like get your business plan, load it into ChatGPT, and ask for advice.
Yeah.
Where are the risks? What else did I miss, or something?
Yes.
You can actually do, and you'd be surprised at kind of how good it can be. Whether it's ChatGPT, Perplexity, Anthropic, whatever it is, you can pick any of those models depending on various things. So I think start small, like you said. You don't have to go all in on big,
All in. Yeah.
right? And the reality is, people aren't going to be building their own AI models. We don't build our own AI models for our software. We use other AI models. We know that we wouldn't realistically be able to build our own. We could, but it would cost a fortune. OpenAI has spent tens of billions of dollars building out their model, right? So,
Absolutely.
so you can use other tools that are out there. You don't have to kind of do it yourself.
No, totally. I think we are in it together. We want to, as technology leaders, we want to make their journey more smooth and more cost efficient. I think, thanks to you and your team, like we are partnering now, and ConverSight part of Katana. It's a compelling thing where some of their tasks can be automated by Athena,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that'll make a lot of their thing easy and doing so. I'm very excited about our partnership, how we are going to empower our joint customers with some of these. So I know I always ask like next 5 years where this going to go, but then maybe that's too far when think about AI, right? What do you think in the next 1, 2, 3 years where the AI is going to be, but in the context of inventory and
Yeah.
your SMB?
I think some of the examples I mentioned earlier around
Mhm.
kind of automation of function and insights, and being able to do the work for you and tell you the answer, and kind of essentially feed you exceptions to make decisions. 3 years from now, yeah, we'll have that. I think to differing degrees in different areas, but yeah, I think that will be there. And yeah, I think for most people, I think it'll be sort of almost invisible that it's AI, in the way that the cloud is invisible to people today, right? You're using Amazon.
Exactly,
You
right?
know it's
Yeah.
running on the cloud, but there's no way to know it's running on the cloud for
Yeah,
most
we
people.
no longer see those data rooms in corner of our offices anymore, and everything is running magically.
It's like cloud, it's like cell phones, it's like big technology leaps that kind of ultimately become invisible. I think how you interact may differ, right? So recently, there's been lots of chatbots. I think those will go away in the future. I think that'll be less and less needed for interacting. It's funny though, because it does make me think. It's something you asked earlier about people getting their data ready, because it's one of the big learnings we had. I imagine you did too. Is that if your operational data isn't kind of clean, AI is going to struggle with it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, one of the things, regardless of whether you want AI or not, or what you're looking at, getting your operational data in place and kind of making that a habit, making data-driven operations a habit, experimenting with some AI tools internally, just like ChatGPT, whatever it is. I think those are all good things to be doing, just kind of general readiness for the future. But I think they're also just kind of good business habits.
Absolutely. But thinking about, right, in the SMB, especially these companies are just getting started in their data journey and all those. It's much more easy job than someone having an old ERP for 20 years and their
Yeah.
data is mess and there are thousands of products and all that, right? So while yes, there are data quality problem, but it's not that big of a problem that you can't solve in the SMB space.
And the payoff, it is worth it. And you will be, it's the kind of almost like the you don't know what you don't know. I mentioned that customer that found a bunch of missing inventory. Well, they didn't know they had that problem until they cleaned up their
Problem.
data, right? And so there will be benefits that people will find. And I think it's part of that. You mentioned like old ERPs and old systems, old kind of playbooks. The kind of, we've always used Excel for that. I don't think that's a good reason anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
the world's proven that of late.
I think there are a lot of small value, especially when you bring this data together, right? We worked recently with a distribution company, and obviously tariff and other things is challenging them. Month one, we saw that around some 60 products where they were making negative margin. Their their unit cost and then all the logistics put together, what they are supposed to sell versus what their price is, like -10%, -8%. Like what a huge value in the month one. The AI, probably the AI, I don't think we even need a complex AI for this. Simple, and it could have been done, but the company was growing extremely fast, and they were like a handful of people trying to manage it. That extra AI agent made them to think ahead and made it right. So the ROI is pretty clear for these AI and
Hmm.
analytic systems nowadays.
Yes.
Yeah, exciting where the industry is going, and excited about our partnership as well. Looking forward. Ben, thank you for your time. I am sure
Thank you.
you have a lot more to cover in the AI and all that. We are all learning it together. And I would like to have you back in our podcast maybe 6 months to a year from now. That what we spoke about the use cases, did we underestimate? Did we overestimate?
Let's do that.
Are we
That'll
slow
be
in
fun.
thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much for having me on. I really enjoyed the conversation. It's been great.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Thank you.